voice of the man himself, Earl Moore with Karma. Good reggae music coming out of Atlanta, I tell you. Our producers, our writers, our singers, our performers. I don't care what anybody says. You know, the Caribbean people who are here in Georgia are doing big things.
And they're serious about it.
You're very, very serious about it. We're not rap about these things. Right? And when you talk about big people, serious people who handle business here in Georgia, we have the honor and the privilege of gracing us this evening one of those such persons, if not the most and foremost person leading the charge representing Caribbean folks in Georgia. Ladies and gentlemen, we have State Representative, the Honorable Donna McLeod in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you guys for having me.
Yes,
Thank
guys,
you for coming.
For those of you who cannot see, she repping. She is.
I see it. If you can't see it, she sure is repping her country. Look at those earrings she got on. She repping Jamaica. Guys, look at her. Remember her, because we got some good stuff about her. So
now, you're Jamaican born, American state representative here in Georgia, the first of Caribbean descent to hold that.
That's true.
Congratulations.
That's
we
awesome.
have a history maker in the building.
And she's a female. Yes.
The ladies have been doing it in the political world.
Power,
Black women especially have been doing it here in America. And we're glad to know that one of us is amongst the number and leading the charge, especially in a very, very important state like Georgia.
Yes, we are the center of the nucleus now when it comes to the political arena. And so it is quite a learning experience. Obviously, this is not a path that I initially thought I would take, but but they say if you're not at this table, you're on the menu. So you don't need to be on the menu.
Yes,
I'm gonna use it.
Let's tell people how you got into politics. You started off at the grassroots level working with the Obama campaign. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm actually a chemical engineer by profession.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a mom and I'm also a grandmother.
Oh.
I have a 35-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old grandson.
Oh my God.
That don't crack, y'all.
Yes, at all.
Indeed, we'll take it all. But so I actually born in Kingston, Jubilee Hospital.
Okay.
My grandparents and my parents lived around the Tivoli Garden. Actually, my grandmother's house is in Tivoli Gardens. So I'm really Kingston.
When you say Jubilee Hospital, right away, that's
definitely concrete, Kingston. But my dad, so back in the, I guess in the early, the mid 70s, mid 70s, it got pretty violent in Jamaica. That was the the PNP, the GLP, the labor rights, violence. Door kicking down. I actually almost lost my life twice because of gun violence.
Political violence.
Political violence. So my grandmother really pushed. My dad left when I was a year old to go to Canada because, of course, Canada and Great Britain are all part. Canada and Jamaica are part of the Commonwealth. And so my dad's a welder. So they wanted his talent, and he migrated to Canada and was there until 77 before we came up back. So I was 9 years old when I went to Canada, and I grew up in Canada. I went to school in Canada. My daughter was born in Canada. So my father is I guess he's the catalyst for all of this because he left Jamaica to Canada, but then he decided he was going to go to the States in lieu of before he got to his retirement. And so this was back in 91. He asked, he was already going. He already left Canada, go to the States, and he asked if we were interested in coming down. We were adults. My sister and I were already adults, and we said sure. They're not really thinking much about it. Life went on, and that was 91. We didn't get our green card until 1998.
Yeah,
so 7 years it took.
You beat me.
It takes a minute. So in that time. 96, the Olympics happened here.
Right.
So I actually was thinking about Seattle or here, and then when the Olympics happened here, we end up coming down in 97, and actually Georgia really kind of fit the kind of bill for us because growing up in Canada, it's such a clean place.
Yeah.
You know, we had family in Bronx and Brooklyn and stuff, but it really didn't. It didn't really suit our personality and
I said that
suburban.
to one of our guests more recently that I didn't realize how dirty Brooklyn was until I came here.
Yeah.
I was like, wait.
Yeah, it really is. And at the time, this was like when I went there was like the 80s, and you're talking about graffiti everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've cleaned up a lot, and it's a great place culturally to be, but it wasn't a place that I would have been used to. And so, Mayor Campbell, I guess, and then Ambassador Young did a great job in advertising Atlanta.
Yes,
and everybody, and there's Atlanta, and then there's the rest of Georgia. That's what they tell me. But with doing so, I came down here in 1998. I came here as an engineer. Actually, I was doing engineering work. I was doing, and then I got into quality management. So I actually consult. As my own business now for medical device companies to make sure they stay in compliance. So I'm going about my business.
Business ownership, folks. Business ownership.
Entrepreneur.
And then 1990, then 2000 happened with the Gore and Bush, George W. Bush election.
That Florida,
the whole shebang, and that actually piqued my curiosity into politics, to be honest, because I'm a very mathematically driven person, and I say you can't just math is one of those clear science, right?
Yes, yeah. Numbers don't.
They don't lie. So how you gonna just change things in the middle of things? So it didn't go well for me in my head, which is a good place. Might be a problem, but anyway, I ended up going down to Florida, protesting George W. Bush's inauguration. I was only here in less than 2 years. I said he's going to throw me into their country. So I'm down there with my placards and stuff. And then it so happened, obviously he got put into office based on a ruling, which is not what the Constitution requires.
Right. And Al Gore had more of a case, and if he really wanted to, he could have.
Absolutely.
But he understood the presidency and
wanted to make sure that we didn't go into chaos.
Right.
Other people proven later on that they didn't care if they were going to chaos lately, but he did. And so I went about my life doing my work. 2004 happened. A young man named
what's his name?
Barack Hussein
Obama comes up on the stage, and he has his blue state. It's not a red state. It's the United States of America. Then he brings up his charming wife and 2 beautiful girls. I said if he ever ran for president, I was going to be there from day one. And that's really, really what happened. And I wasn't a citizen at that time. So in 2008, I used to drive from Gwinnett County down to Northside because that was the only office open at the time for then Senator Obama. And a lot of people forget now, but when he initially ran, there were a lot of black folks that weren't supporting him. In fact, we had enough doors slamming in our faces. There was about 14 people that showed up in that office. Out of the 14, only 5 of us was actually from Georgia.
Wow.
The other 9 people were from out of state. So I went out with a young white kid actually from Texas when we first went out, and the only civil rights person that was actually supporting then Senator Obama was Reverend Lowry. And he used to do the invocation when we got to those offices in the first place. And when I tell you we got doors slammed in our face, not a joke.
This is real grassroots.
Real.
This is what it
and
really
so
takes.
And so when we got there, the young man, it actually snowed. It was a very strange day but that shouldn't be strange because we've got 4 seasons in one day. But it snowed, and I asked the young man if he wanted to go back to my car so that we could keep warm. He said, "No, I'm doing this for Barack." Other than having my daughter, that campaign was phenomenal beyond expectation of humanity, believing in a single reason, and mainly because not that they saw Barack Obama as no savior, although some people really did look at him very highly, but they saw the potential of somebody who really would care about the people, and that's what government's supposed to be about, right? Because they collect taxes, and this ultimately it's about what monies we collect,
Mhm.
and I'll go a little bit more into when I get to as a state legislator. But they really believed in him,
Right.
and so it was phenomenal. And after the election and he won, it was like people really completely didn't know what to do. That was such a hyped campaign,
Yeah.
and just the enormity of the campaign. I went to several different states, and every state that I went to, the kind of people that showed up, you were talking about people that practice Hindu, Judaism, Christianity, Muslim, black, white, short, and the Africans. Oh, they thought when you came to their door and they thought you touched Barack, they dragged you in the hat. It was really wild. So we were in North Carolina, and that was actually the primary for the North Carolina primary. We went there, and at that time it was really solemn in a way, because that was the Reverend Wright issue. I don't, if you guys recall the whole Reverend Wright, his pastor. Yeah, and that they were basically pushing then Senator Barack Obama to choose a side, and that his pastor was anti-American, and so it was really. So I went there, and it was like the office was like gloom and doom. But let me tell you, when we went out into the field and started going to the doors to knock doors, them people didn't care. They were ready for Barack.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so after that particular primary, I was positive he was going to be president.
Yeah.
Because at that moment in time, it was clear that people wanted that change, and they didn't care. They were going to make this happen.
It was time.
And so, and I remember when he won, I was they were doing a hotel, we're in a hotel room with a bunch of other supporters, and I remember Wolf Blitzer going down. It was at, I think it was 10:55, something like that. I think it was 10:55 or something like that. He went down. He said, when we come back up, polls in California will close, and we'll know more about it. But when he came back up, it didn't even come back to his face. It just said Barack Obama will be the 44th president.
It was game
It
over.
It was pandemonium in that room. I mean, people were running all over the place. It was just I literally sat back down. So I was so I knew he was going to win, but it was so much emotion that it got into it at that point. So that's how I kind of got really, really excited about politics in the U.S. And I wasn't a citizen yet, but I kept registering people to vote. In fact, I've registered over 30,000 people just in Gwinnett County alone to push forward. But just knowing that people had the power. He didn't come from rich.
Right.
So when people were saying everybody's rapping, yeah, people believed it after a while, but I can assure you they didn't believe at first.
Yeah,
So
I can understand, especially black people.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Oh,
they'll
yeah.
never let one of
Oh,
us
my
be
gosh.
president,
And
right? That's going to be the initial thing.
That was
Like,
his
as
dream
much
to
as
make
we guys
it.
have hoped and prayed, we always had that thing in the back of the mind. Allows
Absolutely.
us to say, they'll never let that
No,
happen.
exactly.
Society
And I
has
remember
made it
even
that way.
some of the Jamaicans and like in the Jamaican resident, jeez, they might kill him, afraid for that. I'm like, look, if Michelle is all right with that, I'm all right with that, all right? But, those are the kind of things you were hearing. Even when I put my sticker, and I still have the car, and it still has a sticker on my back. I was the first person in Gwinnett County to have the Obama sticker. Afraid I'm going to tear up a car. Someone's supposed to live fear for everything. And when he became president, obviously that was historic. But also, I think it showed the power of people.
Yes.
It was not just about
when they
message,
want
the
change,
initial
when they
message
want
of
change.
hope.
When you want change and you're fed up with how things have been going,
The power.
the system, and it was like, this is it. This is the door we needed to open. He literally just put one foot right there, and people opened the door for him.
It wasn't him.
Yeah.
Yes We Can was a black woman one night that he was at a rally, and she said, what about Yes We Can? And that's how it became the rallying call for a lot of people. So why I really want to tell that story is because people need to believe that they're the power in this country, not the people you elect. The people you elect are only powerful because you make them so, because you elected them.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm going about, I started a nonprofit organization called CANI, Community Action Network Initiative, and we register people to vote. You know, I was not a citizen yet, by the way. I didn't become a citizen until 2012.
Okay.
So I actually ran for the first time in 2016. 4 years after becoming a citizen. I thought to myself, because when they asked me, I wasn't going to, because I'm like, people are going to think that I'm extra. I said, bring up my silver.
You just reach out, you want to tell people how to
They're not even dry yet.
So I said no. It was now obviously he's my colleague, but he was a former football player for the Falcons, Dewey McLean.
Okay.
He's Representative McLean, and he's the one that convinced me, because one of the reasons why I said yes to him when other people had asked me, I think he was like the fifth person, was because whenever he's ever said he was going to do something, he did it. And that integrity and, you know, you can trust somebody, that's why I end up saying yes. So I ran in 2016 and I lost by 222 votes, and that was the Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump election. So when I lost by 222 votes, when we did analysis of that race, we found out 2,100 people didn't vote. I lost by 222 votes. But I also realized that things happen for a reason. So what we did was kind of crafty. We actually campaigned the entire 2017. And what we did was called a thank you campaign. Thank you for not voting technically, because they didn't vote. These were the 2,100 people we knew didn't vote. And I told them what I lost by. But I'll tell you what, in 2018, they showed up and I won my race by over 4,000 votes.
There you go.
Amazing, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are speaking with State Representative Donna McLeod, who is running for Congress, United States Congress, and she is our guest here on the Atlantic Caribbean Music Radio Show. We are 10 minutes to the top of the hour, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, Donna, I think the story you just told gives people a great sense of who you are in terms of the motive. I think a lot of people wonder, well, why is that person getting? Do they just want the money or just want
money? $17,000? No.
Well, you know what it is when you get into the place where you can make the money flow. You know, it's not the paycheck, but what people assume are that a lot of things that happen with politicians, and so that's what really gets to that intrinsic, you know, that goodness of why you want to be in that office, and that is so important. I had a friend during the last election who wasn't going to vote, and he said, I just don't trust him. I said, well, if you can't trust them, you go run. That's exactly what I said. Like, right? You trust yourself, right? You want to do right by the people, right? If it needs to be done, you got to get up and do something about it. You've gotten up and you've been doing something about it.
And I did. And I want people to understand what politics is about, right? And there's two different types, right? Two different things, politics and governing. So politics is literally the ability to persuade people, right? Yeah. So when people are out there, they're campaigning, and if you notice, they're not going to go to anyone. They're going to go to registered voters, people that vote,
right?
Because that's the people that can hire them. Right. So that's what politics is about, persuasion. I'm going to try to convince you to vote for me over somebody else, because that's what politics is about. Governing is about making sure that you actually do the work on behalf of the people. Right. Governing is about the tax dollars that's collected from you. It's really not about much more. When people are talking about their moral compass and stuff like that, yes, you want to go in as a person who's elected with some sense of integrity, because you want to be able to say no to certain things and yes to certain things and do it right on behalf of. But it's honestly, it's about the monies that is collected in income, sales tax, and fees. Mm-hmm. So in the state of Georgia, it's a $30 billion with a B budget. That's bigger than some countries, right? Out of that $30 billion, 76% comes directly from income and sales tax. Even if you don't pay income tax, if you buy anything, you're paying sales tax. Mm-hmm. So you're contributing to the fiber of this state. Yeah. 76% of that. 12% comes from fees. So if you get pulled over by the police, you pay fees on your bills, on your electrical bills, all fees. So that's another 12%. The last 12% comes from businesses. And 280,000 businesses in the state of Georgia do not pay taxes. Georgia prides itself on being the number one place to do business. But it's not the number one place usually for employees. And we need to do both, because at the end of the day, we're seeing now when employees are saying, I'm not coming to work anymore because I'm doing my gig job over here.
Right.
And I can make enough money delivering food or packages.
That is
so
true.
these are real things.
Yeah.
We saw this at the Capitol. So I want people to really truly understand what government is about, is how we actually spend your money. You would never play the stock market and not expect a return on investment.
True.
You're going to pay taxes and then what? Sit back and chill out and say, you just do it with my money what you want?
Yeah.
Because they will.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you didn't vote. Somebody's voted and somebody's telling whomever they vote for that's what I want you to do on my behalf. Right. So if that's not what you wanted it to be done, too bad. Yeah. Because you weren't at the table. You didn't let your voice be known by going to the ballot box. That's why it's so important to vote. And I tell people all the time, the right to vote, we call it a right to vote. There is no such thing as a right to vote for people of color, women, young people. It is an amendment to a constitution. The only people in the Constitution that have a constitutional right to vote are white men with land. So everybody needs to recognize that your ability to vote, and you want to throw it away, you just have an ability. 2/3 of Congress can dissolve the 15th Amendment. By the way, we need to do the 13th first because black people weren't free.
Right.
On July 4th, 1776. Emancipation for us didn't come until 1863, and 65 was when Texas decided they're going to recognize that people of color were actually free. And so the 15th Amendment giving black men an ability to vote, the 19th Amendment gave women the ability to vote, and the 26th Amendment gave young people, 18 years of age and older, the ability to vote. So don't get confused about your right, because there is no rights. Right. It is an ability. And that's why it is so important that you have people at the table that understand what needs to be fought for. Because without, this is a republic. If you don't have the right to vote, you do not have a representative democracy. Right. U.S. is a very unique system. It's different from most of the other systems because there's 3 branches of government, and they're separate, but they are equal. And that is the thing, and it actually relies on people being somewhat honest. And we found out that it has been stretched.
I think more so than ever, and before, even if it had been, there was a facade. There was an outward thing that they projected in terms of politics and politicians that, that they were above board. Now, one of the things about people running for office, there's also that I think one thing that we always assumed with elected officials was that, maybe you know something about political science. You actually...
Some don't.
Right, like... You mentioned the Constitution. Yes. I've watched TV and heard out of the mouths of sitting senators stuff that is not anywhere part of
and those of us that have to become citizens that have to take the test, we actually take the time to learn a lot more about the Constitution. And you're right, you get silly things coming out of people that are supposed to know better. But you've got to understand, as long as you can pay your qualifying fee, doesn't mean that you actually know the job you're going to be encountering. And that is a big problem. And again, I want people to stop looking at politicians in a reverence way, but respect us as politicians, because we are sacrificing. But it is your voice that we're supposed to have. You hired us to do a job, and it should be done on your behalf. I'm running for this seat in the 7th Congressional District. I'm the only one in this race. Lucy McBath, unfortunately for her, the Republicans in the State House, they had the ability to draw the maps. By the way, people didn't participate again in the 2020 census, which again determines another 10 years of politics and money that comes back into our state. So when you didn't get counted, that's another issue. So now we have a situation where the Republicans are the majority. Now in my county, the Democrats are the majority in Gwinnett County elected. So out of 18 sitting representative, 18, 14 of us. 14 of us are Democrats.
Okay.
But in the state house, which is 180 members, we're a minority. We have 77 members.
Okay.
And so they have the ability to basically, unlike in Congress where it's 60, 60 plus in Congress, it's just a majority. Unless it's a constitutional amendment, which they would need 120 votes. So they would rely on Democrats helping them in that way. Otherwise, they can pass anything, and that's what they did. They passed a gerrymandered map already. It's in which they took 350,000 people out of Lucy McBath's district and put in 350,000 Republicans. Now she's still in that district though. She lives in Marietta. I live in the 7th Congressional District for the last 20 years. I've been serving in that district for the last 20 years. I've been doing the work in that district. I'm not running just to run. She's running just to be reelected.
Right.
I'm running to serve the people that I serve. And that is very important for people to understand why I am in this race. I'm not running just to run against a congresswoman. I'm running because I live there, and my voice for my folks that live in the 7th should be in Congress so that they could be properly represented.
Right.
Because that's what it's about, representation.
Instead of people selecting their voters.
Yes, exactly.
and
that happens a lot.
There are so many hot button bullet points that we really need to educate our folks to let them know what's going on and what they need. So that one thing, gerrymandering, but showing up for votes and making sure your voice gets out. There's a lot of things that they need to learn about how to register for vote, because that keeps changing. Would you speak a little bit about that for us?
So one of the things I want people to do is either go to mvp.sos.ga.gov, that's mvp.sos.ga.gov, or vote.org. Either one of those sites, it'll get you, the vote.org will take you to Secretary of State. You need to make sure you're registered to vote. You can't vote until you're registered to vote in the state. And they do not register by party, so you don't have to claim a party. You just have to register. Once you are registered, make sure you check to make sure that your registration has been processed. And you can do that at the mvp.sos.ga.gov. It is important that anyone that's registered, or in your mind that you're registered, you vote all this time, to check your registration status.
I need to
make
do that
sure
myself.
You are still registered, because what has happened is the Secretary of State office, they had actually purged a whole lot of people off the voter roll. So double check your voter registration status. If you've moved, please again update your voter registration status again to make sure that you're going to be able to vote in your new location and the precinct that you're in. Please make sure you update. Check your voter registration data as well. Your name, your address. Make sure it's really you. I had a constituent contact me because previously her registration said she was black. Today it's saying she white. So those are the little things you gotta check.
Is that one of those?
Went ahead and
how she was
change her
identified?
race like nothing, huh?
But then she shows up, right? They'll say that there's an error.
And then say that she can't
and she
vote.
cannot vote. So that's why the majority of the issue comes in when they actually go vote. There's always something that comes up.
Yes.
And like you said, people move. People don't think. Sometimes
they're
you
not
don't think,
thinking.
Yeah, sometimes you're not even reading the information in your data. You're just like, oh, okay. Until you get there and you say, here, I'm here to vote. And they're like, wait a minute.
And God forbid if you wait for the last day to vote. So there's early voting for this race. It's called the primary. This is midterm election, so it's midterm in between a presidential election. That's why they call it midterm. The primaries are every 2 years. The primaries is where you choose which person you want to represent you in the November election. So that's where the primaries in. Also, you have judicial races. Those are called nonpartisan races. But the partisan races and the judicial races, May 24th is election day. Early voting starts on May 2nd. That's for all counties, no matter where you live. That's why you need to go to the mvp.sos.ga.gov or vote.org to make sure you know exactly where you're supposed to go. Early voting locations are usually determined by the county. and you'll have to find that on your Secretary of State website or the My Voter page website, so you know exactly where you're going to go early vote. If you make a plan to vote, because we did change a lot of things last year with SB 202, the disgusting anti-voting suppression law. No, but make a plan to vote. Are you going to vote early? Are you going to vote in person? Are you going to vote absentee? That's also an option. To fill out an application, request your ballot to be sent to your house. The application got longer. It makes no sense why it needs to be that long. But
because they know people stop halfway through and not come back to it. And
and it's tiring and it's exhausting. Are you going to vote in person, or are you going to vote on election day? Keep in mind when you wait till election day, weather could be a factor. All of that. Right. So, the earlier you vote, trust me, your vote will be counted, because we're counting it as as candidates. So, and you can check your status as to where your progress is once you drop off a ballot or you vote in person on a machine. So again, make a plan to vote, because it is that critical. We have a gubernatorial race coming up in November. We have state senator race coming up in November. Going down the ballot. Don't go in the voting machine, the voting booth, and just on your paper and just choose one candidate at the top. You're not helping that candidate at the top. Right, because if the governor doesn't have a legislative body that actually will give her all right now, give her a win. In order to pass laws, and laws are important. Let me explain why laws are so important. Before 1865 in this state, it was legal to own a human being as a slave, because it was state law. The reason why the slavery ended was 200
years ago.
Yes, and let's not talk about. You're talking about segregation happened afterwards. So it's even less than that, 55 years. But the fact that slavery was a law in states like Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama, the reason why slavery was even put to end, it was not really because they wanted to free black people. They wanted to keep the Union together, because remember, the Europeans came here in search of religious freedom, just freedom from away from Great Britain. They didn't want to be with Great Britain, so they fought their own country. So July 4th, 1776 is the independence of white people from Great Britain or Britain. It was not emancipation for black people. It was a freedom for them, because, and that's what that was. July 4th, when we're ruling America, it is actually the freedom of white folks. They're from their king. And so we need to keep in mind, that's why history is, I'm not saying to live in history, I'm saying to understand the perspective of history, because if we don't understand it, we're doomed to repeat it. And we've done so many times. And that is why it's so important for us to understand why it is important to participate, because we were not at the table. We weren't even a consideration. But now that we have an ability to be at the table, then you figure out how to change it. Because at the end of the day, the 27 amendments to the Constitution was that reason, because the Constitution did not include everybody.
Right. Yes. It was not intended, didn't have you in mind.
No.
Can that document then ever be properly amended to then represent the new America, or would that have to be a start from scratch? Kind of
I think the Constitution actually has a good framing in the fact that the people that were writing it were really actually fearful, because they didn't want to go back to Britain. So the concept of the actual Constitution actually has some really interesting stuff because of fear, right? And we're living through fear again, right? So it is like just over and over. So the idea of the Constitution and what we can do, it's a good framework. The 27th, I think there will be additional Constitution amendments to because it just doesn't cover, especially, unfettered right to own a gun was usually militia. They were actually trying to fight Great Britain, so that's why that Second Amendment was a
But
part
that
of
Second
it.
Amendment says that regulated part,
But
and they
They
skip
keep,
over
oh
every
yes,
single time.
the only unfettered part. I want unfettered access to the ballot box myself. You want unfettered access to the
Come on
gun?
now.
I want unfettered
Let's
access
go.
to my ballot box. And so, yeah, but that's exactly regulated. They seem to look that all the way. Won't even consider background check because that is the way they gain power, right? The gun was, so the Chinese invented gunpowder, but Europeans weaponized it.
Yes. Yeah. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Atlantic Caribbean Music Radio Show. We are speaking with State Representative Donna McLeod here with us. We're about 10 minutes past the start of the countdown. I'm going to drop a couple songs. I want to keep the conversation going. If you don't mind hanging around.
No, of course not.
All right. We're going to get into our top rated countdown right now. Counting down the top 10 songs in the ATL. Now, to qualify, artist has to be a resident of the state of Georgia. And each and every week, we scour all of the international music charts. And we take a look at those numbers. We put it into our special matrix, which always spits out in correct order the top rated 10 songs. In the number 10 position, once again, this is Ras Frazier Jr. with Work Hard. By the sweat of your brow, you shall consume bread. Busy hold up your head. Hold up the forehead. Remember the close mouth, never get fed. Work hard for your things. So, for your election, your upcoming election for Congress, right?
Yes.
Who is allowed to vote for you?
So, in the 7th Congressional District, I actually will be representing over 700,000 people. It consists of Snellville,
Okay.
Lawrenceville, Grayson,
Yep.
Decula, Duluth, Norcross, Lilburn, go over to Peachtree Corner, Berkeley Lake, and Johns Creek. Okay. And I do have little parts of other
like Loganville, probably.
A little bit of Loganville, a little bit of like even in on that side there, Tucker.
Okay.
So, but there, it's like not a lot of people, but those are my big cities.
Okay.
Right.
Good to know. So if you live in one of those cities, you qualify to vote for Donna McLeod for Congress. And it's www.DonnaMcleod.com, and the McLeod is spelled McLeod. Do not put 2 C's. It's not OUD. It's McLeod, and it's just like Donna. Oh, Donna. D-O-N-N-A. So, do you need people in the office? You need hands on the streets.
So yes, so we definitely need volunteers. In fact, on Saturday, the AJC will be covering my. I have a canvassing launch out of Lilburn, and they're coming to see us at the start of our canvass.
Excellent.
But yes, if you're able to volunteer to do texting, to do door. What we're doing right now is lit drop because we still do have a pandemic. So some people are comfortable opening doors, some people are not. So to avoid that, what we do is we're going to walk up. You can do it. It's actually an app called Minivan. And you can go in there and you basically know the address. You go up and put your lid on the door, put it around the door and leave. If you do encounter people, you want to make sure that you're talking about me. So there's a script inside this minivan so people can talk about me and just what I stand for. I usually try to meet with all the volunteers first so they know me personally, so they know I'm not, some abstract. I'm a real person, and I'm just Jamaican too. I'm so real. I'm really raw. I'm Jamaican boys. I'm very, very raw person. So I want people to just realize that the person that's going to be serving me is real. I'm not. I'm thinking, my position now, because you allow me to have that position, now prepares me to be making different decisions because of that role, but it's because you put me there to make those decisions. In the state of Georgia, we have to learn about almost everything, healthcare, environmental stuff, recycling, education, you name it, we have to know about it, because at the end of the day, when we're making a vote, when I push in a green button or a red button to say, yes, I agree with something or I don't agree, I know that I'm impacting almost 11 million people. Yeah. Even though my district is 105 at the state capital, at the end of the day, every vote that I make is also, as a potential to become law, is going to impact 11 million people. And that's the way I think. Same when I get to Congress, out of 435 members, it doesn't matter. That one vote that I have will also impact almost 400 million people.
Right.
And that is the way we have to think about being a service person to the people, is to look at it as service. And how we service people is to make sure we do right by them.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Please tell people again how they can contact your website, how they can donate, how they can volunteer, all the information that they'll need to contact Donna.
So I'm on Facebook, Twitter, IG. All of it is Donna for Congress. DONNA number 4 Congress. All of the social media. Easy.
Just like Barack showed us, right?
Yes.
Just like Barack showed us. Nice and easy.
Easy. Sunday morning. Just easy like Sunday morning. And my website is www.electdonnamcleod.com. That's that's my old one. www.DonnaMcleod.com. That's how simple it is. DonnaMcleod.com.
DonnaMcleod.com.
And you can email me at info@DonnaMcleod.com. For social media, website, email, you can also sign up for my newsletter, and you can go to www.DonnaMcleod.com and just sign up. And you can sign up there to also volunteer as well. Awesome. So there's lots of ways to get in touch with me, and so please use them. And please, again, I am not running for a title. I have plenty of those. I'm a grandmother. I'm a mama. I'm an auntie. I got plenty.
And she's a dance hall queen for life.
Big up. No respect to the dance hall queen.
With a math brain.
My mother used to look at me like, what is Rhonda's? Because when I heard music, I had to dance. But so, at the end of the day, it makes me who I am, right?
Yes.
When you've been raised in a place where the people are real, when I tell you their mouth stink and all that, you get to be a real person. Yeah. And so I'm grateful for that ability. And because of that, I'm able to be any place because I'm comfortable in my own skin.
Yes.
I could be in a room with President Barack Obama. It ain't going to be any different than being in a room with the 3 of you. Because it doesn't matter. Because when you're comfortable in your skin, it doesn't matter. Because if you understand your own humanity, that's the most important part. Because once you know that your worth is equal to all other worth, then you don't, yeah, you get nervous about certain people. You might be like, oh gosh, but don't let it get to the point where you worship another person.
Yes.
Because they're just humans. And they have the same frailty. And I don't know if the pandemic has ever taught anybody anything, but that's something that it taught me.
Yes.
That none of us are here for sure long term. Nothing's guaranteed.
Man,
but how quickly it can all end because we breathe in air. And when we can't breathe, it is over. That's the one thing. We can live without water for a while. We can live without food for a while. But air,
yep.
And that is what COVID did. It literally left people breathless. It attacked our lungs.
Powerful words. Donna McLeod. We got so many quotables from you tonight.
I'm just loving the whole energy.
I got quotes?
You have
one more quote. I have a quote that I coined a long time ago when I first started registering people to vote. And it was all because of Barack Obama fever, right? Like, just doing it. And then I quoted, I said, knowledge is the most powerful thing you give to yourself. But the vote is the most powerful thing we give to each other. Because think about it. We coexist together. And what we decide by our vote determines who gets there and makes the decision on your behalf. That's how powerful the vote is. And that's how powerful knowledge is. And I fight every day. I stand on education as well, because in the state capital, that's the number one budgeted item is education. But the last time it was actually formulated, the formula was in 1985. This is 2022. So a lot of things are not there that should be there, right? Kids that have special needs, because we get federal dollars for that. We should be caring about those kids as well. English is a second language. That's something because we have a diverse state now. And, just even little things that people don't think about is, where do these kids live? And I wish that we'd stop using zip code as a means of determining how kids get funded. And so that's another thing, right? But also the key issue for me is we know that if kids aren't reading by grade 3, their school to prison pipeline opens up. Inside the Georgia budget, there's $140 million to private prisons. Why are taxpayers paying? I have refused to vote for the budget for the last 3 years, because as long as you keep funding private prisons and you're setting up our kids to go to prison, I'm not for you. Because at the end of the day, the budget should be a reflection of your values and what you think for your people. And it's not reflecting that. So if you're going to, they literally take from grade 3, start building prison. Because if our kids aren't educated yet, they're going to be in prison. Everybody's not going to be a science major. Everybody's not going to be a college major. But everybody should be able to read and write. Exactly. 63% of people in the state of Georgia cannot read above grade 6.
63%.
I had to say.
Wait. The great state of Georgia. This supposed to be 63%.
You guys live you all live in the Atlanta area, so you get a little confused.
But there's a lot of rural areas outside of it that if you ever driven around Georgia for real, these small, there is a lot of rural areas that don't focus on education. Yes.
Of Georgians cannot read above a grade 6. And we get confused.
Anytime.
Unfettered access. but that's the point, right? Again, at the end of the day, we have to understand everything that is surrounding us. And most of us that live in the metro area, we think this is it, right? Because most of us come highly educated, or we have talents, and we come here for that reason. Well, there's a bunch of the state. The state is still not in the inside. Some of them still the one. Most of our southern legislators. That's another thing that people need to understand. Just because you're there elected doesn't mean that you get to run shot what you want. Because there's southern legislators that their most important thing is to get broadband. Yeah, we're walking around anywhere we want in the house, and sales working. We're like,
they want their cell phone to work. That's
who do I need to call? I'm not getting my call. Yeah, but that down south, a lot of them don't. Their phone won't work because they don't have broadband. They don't have the kind of, I guess the cellulose and things that are used to create the broadband, and so. We sometimes see our lives through our own sphere, and we stop seeing other people's need. And that's the other thing, empathy. Being a legislator, being somebody who's at a table, we have to consider everybody. It's not just my own point of view, because I have people with varying opinions. But one of the things that the reason why I was able to win by over almost 8,000 votes in my second election is because people know that I'm sincere. Whether we agree or disagree, they know if they come to me for something, it's going to get done.
Yep. You've proven, you've done the work, and it was so important for us to have you on, and so thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
And please come back. There's so much more. I feel like I need to educate the people more. We need to educate
the
people
power
more
of
on
votes.
What they need to do and how to do, and pay attention to when things are being passed in the offices, and we need to be on our school boards. Parents. I know.
Involved in your
you should have seen some of the legislation this year about divisive language, literally saying We don't want you to tell the truth about slavery or anything that offends or make me feel sad about myself.
No.
Well, keep feeling sad about yourself because we're going to keep telling the story.
Yes.
Because you're not going backwards.
Trying to
It's
rewrite
not,
history.
Absolutely.
Remove stuff from the
Absolutely.
She has got our back, folks. She's got our back. So if you live in a city that qualifies, if you're in her district, we have to send Donna McLeod to Congress.
Yes, we do.
All right? That's what we're doing this year. There's 80,000 Caribbean folks in Georgia.
Yeah.
It's probably more than that because y'all didn't answer the census.
Oh,
So-
and by the way, if you're there for 25 years and 30 years, it's time for you to become a citizen. You're now go home.
Yes.
Whoa, you
Stop.
heard it.
Stop.
Tell them again.
Become a citizen so you can have your voice. You will not lose your citizenship to the country you were born in.
Yeah.
You will always be
Absolutely
a
not.
nationalist.
Yes.
You will always be that person. Trust me, in your passport, where does it say for nationalism? With your national,
Yes.
it says Jamaica. What does it say?
Panama.
Ah, there you go.
There you go.
So you ain't got to worry about
They
that.
can't take it from you. They can't take it from you.
They're not taking it.
They
You
can't
are
take
who
it.
you are.
But while you're
Exactly.
paying taxes here,
Be a part of
Be a
it.
part
it
of
makes
it.
sense to only get your full
Make a
bang for your
difference.
buck.
Make
I'm
history.
just saying.
I'm just saying.
Ladies and gentlemen, Donna McLeod, thank you.
Yes, yes.
This is Atlantic Caribbean Music Radio Show on DWC Radio and on Caribbean Live TV on your ROKU channel. This is the end of our show, but we've got a countdown to finish up real quick, all right? Number 3 this week, the K Queens.